Hello, Facebook world, and welcome to today's show. I am Dr. Jason Dean. This is Revolution Health, and I have a special guest today who has been on before, but also self-admitted as a good friend of mine, and we talk a lot behind the scenes, and we were chatting probably about a month ago behind the scenes, and he had some really cool information that I had to learn. I said, okay, you're coming back on because this is awesome. So Dr. Sachin Patel, thank you for being on the show again.
Thank you, my friend. It's great to be here and great to talk about today's topic. I think it's super relevant, super important, especially where we are at crossroads when it comes to healthcare and self-care. I'm super excited, dude. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And this is going to be, and I have a little more time today to talk. I usually like kind of have a half hour. So I'll let you go for a little bit because this is a subject that it's been around a long time. But I'll be honest with you, I'm having to learn on the fly with this stuff because I didn't know a lot about it. But there's a lot of confusion on the area because there's just different departments in this whole area. And I'm going to have you go through it because you are very educated in it. But first off, we're dealing with mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms specifically today. Tell everyone how you got involved in this world for us.
Sure. So pretty much Paul Stamets will say this as well. And if you're really interested or fascinated in this topic, that's the person that I would highly recommend that you listen more to. My favorite episode and what really got me into this, looking into this a lot more deeper, was his episode 1035 with Joe Rogan. So take a look at that episode. And, you know, I won't do the message as much justice as he will, but I can certainly give you my perspective. And really how I got into this is, you know, that particular episode was really eye-opening for me. I've also been exposed to medicinal mushrooms. And when we say medicinal mushrooms, all edible mushrooms are medicinal. So whether it's a, you know, mushroom that, like an oyster mushroom that you're having at a nice restaurant, whether it's a button mushroom, a white mushroom, shiitake mushroom, all those mushrooms have medicinal benefits. What some people refer to as medicinal mushrooms sometimes might be also known as magic mushrooms, right? So these are the psilocybin containing mushrooms, but all edible mushrooms in a sense are in some way have some sort of medicinal property to them. The mushroom that I consume the most in my life is reishi mushroom. And we'll get into, I don't know how deep you want to go into the anatomy of a mushroom, but
sure,
we can certainly talk about that as well. So there's three parts to a mushroom. There's the mycelium. The mycelium is a very thin thread-like network that connects really the entire forest together. So what's really cool is this: the mycelium is the digestive system, it's the immune system, and the nervous system of the forest. So literally, when you step into a fresh forest, on a fresh forest floor that isn't damaged, with other people trampling on it on a trail or something like that, underneath your feet is billions and billions of mycelia. And these mycelia are the internet of the earth. And, you know, when you step in one part of the forest, the mycelia propagates a signal, kind of like your nervous system would. And the forest literally knows you're there. The plants know you're there. This is how the plants connect information with each other, just like we do with the internet. You know, plants connect information. They share resources. A species of a same plant can connect with another species, a similar species as itself, and share resources with it. So we've been conditioned to think that nature is competitive, but nature is not competitive. It's cooperative and it's transformational. And mushrooms teach us that. So I'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah, and I actually, really quick before you go on, I actually, not to interrupt, but I watched the same podcast episode with Paul Stamets and Joe Rogan, and I was literally, for 3 hours, whatever it was, I was like sucked into this conversation because it was a world I hadn't heard about before.
Right.
And the mycelium that you just went over, my mind was blown like a million times in that episode, listening to the point where I'm like, I had to go read more because just the networking of the mycelium was so fascinating to me. So continue on, but I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah, certainly. So, you know, when we think of nature as being competitive. So, and that's only because we're looking above the surface. When you look below the surface, you realize that nature is actually highly, highly cooperative. And that, you know, when one animal eats another animal, we think of that as life and death, but it's actually truly transformation. And so, you know, when a more complex structure eats a less complex structure, it actually elevates the structure that it ate, right? So, and just something to ponder, but this happens throughout nature. And we look at it as life as, if we look at it as life as death, we think of it as competitive. But if we look at it as transformation, then we start seeing the world in a completely different way. And this is something that mushrooms teach us. So mushrooms can take a dying tree and turn it into, through a transformational process, turn it into something completely radically different. And that mushroom can heal a dying person, right? So it's pretty magical when you think about it that way. So when somebody sees a tree dying, they think of it as a tree dying, or you can think of that tree as transforming and elevating its frequency to a higher level, to a level where it can actually turn into a medicine for a human being. So pretty fascinating when you look at things that way.
Definitely.
What we think about, when we think about mushrooms, we think about typically the fruiting body. So that's the part that grows above the ground. Some mushrooms will grow on trees, so those are sometimes referred to as polypores. So they look a little bit different. Some mushrooms have gills on the bottom of them. Some mushrooms have pores on the bottom of them. And you look at the bottom of the mushroom and you can tell which one it is. It's quite obvious. The fruiting body is what we typically eat. Mm-hmm. So when mushrooms bloom, and the mycelium is running through the entire forest all the time, but when the circumstances are right, when there's enough plant matter, particularly like dead trees, that's where you'll find mushrooms growing in. When that happens, then what you'll typically find are beautiful mushrooms growing there. So you kind of know where to look and when to look, and it makes going to the forest so much fun. So these mushrooms that you find in the forest, if you're hiking, typically you'd want to be careful before eating them. It's also possible to grow your own mushrooms. You can do that very, very cheaply and very effectively. And so that's the second part, the fruiting body, what we're used to seeing. And the third part of the mushroom, which is pretty much invisible to the naked eye, is the spores. The spores are how the mushroom replicates itself. What's interesting about spores is that each mushroom cap has a unique spore fingerprint. So you actually identify the species of mushroom based on the spore fingerprint that it leaves. So you take a mushroom cap off, put it on a white piece of paper, and you'll see a fingerprint from the spores, if you will. And that's how you can actually identify what species of mushroom it is. Pretty fascinating. Mm-hmm. And so the spores are actually the most coveted part of the mushroom. The spore is the reproductive organ of the mushroom, or the reproductive system, if you will. And so when we consume spores, if we were to eat a mushroom and we were to consume the spores as a consequence of that, the spores would travel through our digestive tract because we can't digest through the wall. And the entire purpose of the mushroom spore is to get through your digestive system and grow in your poop and transform your poop into another mushroom, right? So it takes something that's toxic and transforms it into something that could be potentially healing. I mean, think about that, right? You can take mushrooms and actually grow certain species of mushroom at oil spills and turn the oil into something that's actually beneficial. I mean, in fact, it transforms things so much that you can actually eat it. You can eat a tree because the tree was once a mushroom, right? So pretty amazing and profound when you think about it.
It gives you a whole different mindset to our entire symbiotic relationship with our planet. It really does.
Well, if you look at plants, and I'll be totally honest, like I was not great at microbiology and stuff like that. I kind of like memorized enough that I needed to, so I could do great. I did great on my tests, but you know how that goes, right? I was like 18 years ago. So like when you look at the kingdom of species, we actually, all animals were, at one point it was fungi, and then fungi split off, and animalia split off. So what's fascinating about that is we actually originated from mushrooms. So the mycelia went underground, and the animalia species went above ground. And so that's where our origins are. Mushrooms actually literally turn rocks into soil. So without mushrooms, we wouldn't have any soil on this planet, okay? And so they do some pretty profound things. And then one thing you also have to keep in mind is ask yourself the question. I mean, name a single organ that doesn't look like a mushroom.
True.
Right? So you look at your liver. Your liver looks exactly like a reishi mushroom. Your kidneys look very similar to a reishi mushroom. You look at the brain, it looks like lion's mane. So every single organ and body part in our body is replicated shape, has a replicated shape in nature in a mushroom. And what's really interesting about that is that there's a mathematical formula that's built into something that grows in that shape, right? Which means math is an intelligence, right? So math is an intelligent language, if you will. And so there's a mathematical code that's built into that mushroom to grow in that structure. Well, guess what? If it looks like your organ contains the same mathematical code. So it's like you can literally take that code and install it into your body, because the mushroom, and know that the mushroom has the information, the mathematical operating system that's required to heal that organ. And so it's amazing. And when you think about like the mycelium, it's the nervous system, immune system, digestive system of the forest. Well, guess what? The mycelium heals in the human body. It heals those things. So it's so fascinating to me. And I think this is an area that there's tremendous opportunity. You can grow your own mushrooms at home, so it can be very, very cost effective. You can grow oysters, you can grow reishi, you can grow lion's mane. In fact, right behind me on this wall, I have like a 400 square foot room, and I'm going to start growing edible mushrooms in my home. And so we'll have mushrooms pretty much every day. They can grow in the most inhospitable conditions, right? They grow in dirt. So all you need is wood chips and a myceliated wood chips, and they grow in pretty much any conditions. I mean, there's specific conditions, but
Sure.
you can grow them in your basement. They don't
You're making me want to go back and watch the movie Avatar all over again. Like it just, it makes me think of that, because, you know, you and I both deal with nutrition, but we're also chiropractors, and it just like, it gives you this, and I don't want to say it makes you like it's something new, because it's not new. It just makes us understand or re-originate the fact that like our nervous system, I mean, this mycelium, these mushrooms, the network that's going on underneath the ground in the soil, you know, that we forgot about, basically. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is we've been programmed to forget about it through this whole pharmaceutical complex. But this healing world around us, dive into, now there's chaga, there's cordyceps, there's dive into some of the healing properties of some of these mushrooms, because obviously it's a little different if you get something like a cordyceps or chaga versus like, you know, your button mushroom or your portobello mushroom, you know, on your pizza or whatever it may be. Dive into some of that and how it actually affects our health directly.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with reishi, because that's the one I probably have the most knowledge on, particularly because I consume it on a daily basis in a few different vehicles. One is I consume reishi capsules and that contain spores, and I also consume the mycelium, and I also and I'll have like the spores in my coffee. So that's one way that I take one of the most researched medicinal mushrooms on the planet. I mean, reishi has over 3,000 different studies on it, peer-reviewed studies on it, and it's been shown to reduce inflammation, to be chemoprotective, to prevent metastasis. In some cases, it's been shown to actually, some compounds in reishi are actually shown to reverse 11 different types of cancer. You know, so there's some profound benefits to it. The thing with reishi is that it's referred to as the mushroom of longevity, and it was reserved once for emperors only. So if you were caught harvesting reishi, that belonged to the emperor. It didn't belong to the peasant, if you will. They would chop your hands off. The second time, they would chop your head off. So it was highly revered in these cultures for hundreds of years. In mice, reishi has been shown to increase lifespan by about 20%. So in a human being, that would be about 16 extra years. So if the average lifespan is 80, that would take you to 96. And not just like, you know, weak years, like healthy years to your life. So we know that people are living longer, but what they're also doing is dying longer. And so reishi helps promote vitality. The thing with reishi is that there's so many different things that it does that people become skeptical of its properties. Now, here's what I have to remind people of. We're not going to, like, the true cure, the cure of all cures, is not going to be something that damages one part of your body and then fixes another. Like, that's not a cure, right? That's a Band-Aid. That's a medication. A medication will, you know, basically, to lower a number on a piece of paper, like cholesterol, will destroy your kidneys, will destroy your muscles, will destroy your brain, because we're so reductionistic and myopic in our approach. But then we'll give you something that, you know, a drug for your brain, and a drug for your muscles, and a drug for, you know, your kidneys, and a drug for your liver, right? So that's kind of the approach that we take in healthcare. Everything's very compartmentalized. So we have this mentality of one disease, one cure. And if you have multiple diseases, then you need multiple interventions to fix it. But the cure that everyone's looking for is to do one thing, because something that promotes health in one part of your body should promote health in every part of your body. So when you start installing software. So I look at mushrooms. I don't look at mushrooms as food, which is how most people look at them. Certainly, there's benefits like antioxidants and polysaccharides and things like that. But I look at mushrooms as software for the body. So I look at it as an upgrade to your operating system. There's also a hardware component, but I look at it as a true upgrade to your software. Now, what we have to realize in the human body, this is also why medicine fails us and will continue to fail us, is we look at the human body is viewed as a machine, and it's viewed as hardware, right? So in healthcare, what we do is we take pictures of things, we take x-rays of things, we take advanced imaging of things, we draw labs and we look at blood work and we look at numbers. We try to quantify everything because this is how a reductionistic system works. And we focus on the hardware, okay? And we try to fix the hardware. So we'll lower people's chemicals in their body, or raise them, or raise their hormones, or lower their hormones artificially. And so that's a very hardware-driven approach. If we look at our food system is very hardware-driven as well. Because look at a food label, it tells you the micros and the macros and how much, what percentage. So it's all numbers, right? But it's all hardware numbers. And what we need to focus on to really improve our health and understand how we're different than every other thing on the planet is that our software actually builds our hardware, right? So a software on a computer doesn't build the hardware of the computer. In the human body, the software is what builds the hardware. So if I want to build a healthy body, it's going to start by capitalizing and tuning my nervous system into becoming a healing machine, right? So if I have negative toxic thoughts, then I'm going to have negative toxic systems in my body, right? But how you do one thing is how you do everything. So when I look at mushrooms, I look at it as a software upgrade. Now I've updated my operating system so that every part of my body can work better. When you upgrade your operating system, like on your computer or on your phone, sometimes I know there's glitches, so don't hold that against me, but typically it's to make everything work better. So reishi is one of those mushrooms. It has so many tremendous and numerous benefits that it almost creates skepticism when you tell people what it can do. But what people need to realize is what they've been looking for their entire life. It's like the one magic mushroom. If we were going to call anything magic mushrooms, it would be reishi, right?
Absolutely.
Because it does so much. So that's the one that, and I know I'm kind of all over the place, but I want to give people some context. I want to give people an idea of the depth of this topic, right? And like I said, I'm not going to do all of it justice. There's hundreds of different articles that you can read about this, but reishi is one of my best friends. The other one that I take every day is turkey tail. So turkey tail is an excellent mushroom. It's beautiful, actually, and it's one of the most common mushrooms that we see here in Ontario when we go on our hikes. For women, turkey tail is really, really good for battling cancer, especially breast-related cancers. And what's really interesting is Paul Stamets, his mom actually was taking, I believe, 8 grams of turkey tail mushroom when she was first diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was many, many years ago. So she's alive to this day. She did take chemo, but out of the people that also took chemo in the same rounds as her, pretty much all of them died except her. So the turkey tail was not only chemoprotective, but it's also been shown to help reduce the risk of certain cancers. Cordyceps mushroom is another one that I take. I actually take a 5 mushroom blend. So I brought it here with me. It's an organic 5 mushroom blend by a company called Harmonic Arts. And, Paul Stamets has a great company. It's called Host Defense, but this is the powder. So I can mix this into beverages and soups and stuff like that.
Oh, nice. That's really easy. That's much easier to do.
Yeah. And then you have, so Cordyceps. Cordyceps is great for oxygenating the body. So it's a great, actually, pre-workout mushroom tea that you can have, or you can take Cordyceps powder and add it into your pre-workout drink. That's going to give you increased oxygenation. So it's pretty cool and excellent. Great for adrenal function as well. So supporting somebody's nervous system and supporting their adrenal. It's a great adrenal adaptogenic tonic, if you will. So Cordyceps is great for that. And then we also do chaga. Chaga has been very beneficial for the immune system. Chaga typically grows on birch trees, but it grows on birch trees that are still alive because it almost acts like a scab to protect the tree. So it's actually part of the tree's immune system.
It's an immune system.
Exactly. So when you harvest chaga, if you ever harvest it in the wild, you want to make sure that you don't like cut the whole thing off, because you're removing the tree's immune system. So chaga has to be, you know, carefully harvested. I don't harvest it. I have a friend that does, but I do know that you have to be very mindful of how you handle it. So you always want to source your chaga, if you're going to buy it, from people who source it ethically, so that the tree stays alive. And the last one is lion's mane. And lion's mane is great for healthy brain function. And so there's actually a patent that Paul Stamets has, and the patent is demonstrating that you can use psilocybin mushroom, niacin, and lion's mane to actually reverse cognitive decline in Alzheimer's patients. And I dare say reverse it, because I might end up in jail, but you know, people can see for themselves. Anyone who has brain fog, you want to make sure that you're giving these people lion's mane mushroom.
Paul can say it, because Paul can say it. He doesn't have a license. We can't say it.
Well, you know, here's the thing. I've never met anyone who's had a adverse response to lion's mane, and everyone that I've ever recommended it to has had a positive response. Like people's like persistent, chronic, debilitating brain fog gone in 2 weeks, and these people have, you know, quote unquote, tried everything, because we're installing. See, the thing is, when you give somebody vitamins and minerals, you're giving them hardware. You're giving them screws, and you're giving them, you know, nuts and bolts, but you're not giving them the instructions. The mushrooms give you the instruction manual. And so that's the difference between hardware and software. So when we look at mushrooms, I look at it as software for the body. It's software and information for the forest. And I am part of nature, right? So I follow the same guiding principles. I mean, this same math that's woven into the mycelium is woven into the fractal branching patterns that you see in all of nature. And so what I've been really fascinated by is not just applying, you know, what I learned from mushrooms and the metaphors that I gained from mushrooms into my health and, you know, working with clients and stuff like that. But what I like to apply it towards is also business. And so when we start to look at our businesses, for example, like you and I have, you know, networks, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, if we support each other, then, you know, the entire network grows. But if we compete with each other, which is kind of the way the most businesses operate. So instead of trying to elevate everyone, they try to compete with each other. Then, you know, we're breaking the laws of nature, because nature is not competitive. It's actually cooperative, and nature is also transformational. So it's important to kind of, so we started applying these principles into our business, and our business has actually grown exponentially. So it's been really, really interesting when you start applying these principles into your life as well. Our whole staff takes reishi every day, so it's been transformational for them as well. You know, major like upgrades in the way they think and the way they approach a situation, in their energetic vibration. Like it's pretty cool to see that taking place in other people aside from yourself as well.
Sure. And it's so fascinating because, as you're saying, it's this software system that put in, which really puts you into the function dictates the structure philosophy, which is fascinating. We both understand that. And on top of that, it's the Paul Stamets. So anybody who's watching this and wants to learn more, go and Google Paul Stamets. He does have a product, which is a phenomenal product, but just his information is so fascinating. But the fact that his mom, I believe you said, had cancer, and she was taking the mushrooms, but she also had chemo. That is a profound statement to me, only because now you and I, we live in a different world. We're part of the crazies who, like, you know, probably wouldn't touch chemo with a, you know, 100-foot pole, because we know what it is. And we know that the public out there who is having cancer or a debilitating issue, they're going to the medication route. But the fact that you could potentially, beyond chemo, you know, killing off the cells, but also being put into as the mushrooms, that could change a whole healthcare paradigm right there. The fact, because there isn't anybody out there who, you know, taking chemo, they go their route that they want to go, and you say, hey, why don't you just add this in? That's a dramatic impact in the healthcare paradigm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing, and I know you'll agree with this sentiment, because you know, the current allopathic system has saved a lot of lives, right?
Sure, but, it's emergency.
You know, it's emergency care, and you know, let's face it, people are so conditioned in specific ways that they don't know how to take care of themselves, right? So, you know, people are in a trance these days, and they think that they can just go to the doctor and delegate their health, kind of like they delegate their tax return, and they're just going to get spit out a report, and all their problems are going to go away. So I think, people are delusional, and doctors, all doctors have a really difficult time these days. And so I want to like honor the docs that are out there that are doing this, because they think what they're doing, I hope, what they think is best for the patient, right? And I just have to trust and give people the benefit of the doubt that that's the case. But what I also know is that they've got to be open to new possibilities and realize that it's only something from nature that can heal something from nature, right? So the only thing that can heal me is something that follows the same mathematical coding and software principles, right? So it has to be a compatibility. There's a compatibility issue, it's not going to work. So medicine doesn't work well with the human body in terms of code compatibility. Plants do, because they're built on the same framework and architecture. They're built using the same fractal algorithms. And so this is why plants actually heal, and medicines coming from nature actually heal with less side effects than conventional medications do, because they have code to protect you from the actual any damage that would take place. So nature gives the entire code, whereas a medicine is going to be only parts of that code. So you would never update your operating system on your computer with just adding one line of code in there, right? And not changing anything else, right. Or adding a few lines of code and not changing anything else, because that code could create a huge problem and the whole system can crash. So that's what chemo and medications are like, kind of put very crudely. They're incomplete code. So they might fix one part of the problem, but they create problems elsewhere. They create much more bigger picture problems. So with that being said, adding food, I mean, this is just food, right? Adding healthy food into the system, this software into the system is going to have a profound effect. And the nice thing is that, you can add it to your coffee. You don't even know what's in there. You can add it to soup and you don't even know what's in there. So for the most part, it's tasteless, depending on how much you add and what mushrooms you're consuming, but it's something that you can incorporate into your life very, very easily. And we've seen amazing shifts in our patients. Like the results that we see are just profound. And I'm shocked every day, but I'm not shocked because I understand how this all works. So for patients, it's been game changing for a lot of them.
Absolutely, that's amazing. And people are watching this. One of the most common things they're saying is, does this stuff just grow in regular soil?
So it can grow in soil. A lot of times, depending on the mushroom, they grow really well on dying trees, or like trees, sometimes tree stumps or fallen stumps. Wood chips are a great place for them to grow. You can actually, if you go to the local farmer market, I'm going to be doing this probably next weekend, but if you go to a local farmer market, some farmers markets will have people selling mushrooms. So it's like wood chips in a clear bag, and then you take it home, put it in your basement, and it'll start, blooming mushrooms. So wow. It require like little to no effort to grow. That's what's so amazing about them. They require little or no effort to grow. It's best I would speculate that it's best if they grow in the wild. But if you were to like look for in the 3 years I've been hiking the forest, I've only ever found lion's mane once. Right. So I'm sure that lion's mane, it was delicious when I ate it. I'm sure that it was super healthy for me, and probably healthier than something that's going to grow in a plastic bag in my basement. But at the same time, the likelihood of me finding it and having a sustainable source of it is very, very unlikely. Right. Definitely. So part of any medicine or part of any healing journey is to really have consistency in your protocol. So if you want to consistently consume lion's mane mushroom, you can grow it, or you could eat it in a capsule form, but hunting for it is probably not that sustainable. So ideally in nature. So, one of the things I like about hunting for mushrooms is it makes me much more present when I'm hiking, because I have to be really focused. And right. So my son enjoys it as well, because now he's like focused and he's paying attention to, his surroundings instead of being, all over the place. And it's just like a fun way for us to connect and bond. So we just love it as a family, looking for these things. It just brings you into the present moment. And I do see Brad's asking, does it matter what your mushrooms are growing in? And I think we answered that. Some mushrooms grow better in the soil. Some mushrooms are going to grow better, on wood stumps and things like that. So it really depends. And then Tim's asking, where do you get the wood chips from? There's grow kits you can probably get on Amazon. If you go to Amazon.com and type in mushroom grow kits, like people will ship them to you. and you can get oyster kits, you can get reishi kits, you can get lion's mane kits, and you can have them all shipped to you. I'm trying to source them from somebody here locally because I'm going to buy about 100 bags of them.
Nice. Well, yeah, and you mentioned your son, and we both have young children. Like, I mean, I literally, I was researching this a while ago because I saw the podcast episode with Paul, and then talking to you again kind of re-stimulated all that. And I'm like, okay, I want to go and now get some of this stuff because I can, you teach your daughter. It's a great at-home project to start teaching them biology, teaching them earth. I mean, you can teach them with mushrooms your whole planet in one day, from healthcare to, just business, like you said, business, to our earth and how it is, and nature and protecting it. I mean, it really is an education all in one.
Dude, you know what? It's so amazing. It's such a great bonding experience. And there's so much that you can learn from these mushrooms. Just the metaphors that they teach us is quite profound. And, I would highly encourage anyone who's, a practitioner. Certainly you owe it to your patients to learn about this and speak intelligently about it. In the healthcare field, it's probably going to be the next billion-dollar industry, if not trillion-dollar industry. But it's something that you can do at home as well. So it's not illegal to grow your own mushrooms at home. If you wanted to talk about psilocybin, we can talk about that as well. But so psilocybin is there's different varieties of psilocybin containing mushrooms, but psilocybin is what's referred to as the psychedelic compound that's found in mushrooms. And some people will refer to these as magic mushrooms. And here's the thing. So there's two things that are very important if you're ever going to do a psychedelic journey. One is the set. So you want to set an intention into that journey. And the other one is the setting. So who are you with? What's the environment you're in? And so most people that I've spoken to who have tried taking magic mushrooms had the wrong set. So their goal wasn't to learn the secrets of the universe. Their goal was to get messed up, right? Yeah. And hallucinate. That's kind of the old thing people are looking for. They don't even know what that means. And then the second thing was the setting. So it was usually like a bar or a club or somewhere loud, obnoxious, right? And so, but most people have had a positive experience, okay? But they just didn't do it right. They didn't do it in a ceremonial way. As an adult, you want to consider this part of a ceremonial rite of passage. You're going to be shown the secrets of the universe, if you will, and you're going to realize that it's always been there. You just weren't aware of it, or you just weren't in a state of awareness to recognize the patterns that have always been there. And so that's the one thing. There's different ways to take psilocybin. You can microdose it, which is anywhere from 200 to 300 milligrams. You can grind it up in a coffee grinder and put it into a capsule and consume it that way. You can mix it into a drink if you want, or you can put it in your mouth and chew it. So those are the different ways to ingest it, and you want to give it about half an hour or so, and you're not going to feel anything. You're not going to feel messed up. You're not going to feel inebriated. You're not going to feel lethargic. It's not like you're going to be drunk. It's not like you're going to be stoned. You're just going to be. And what'll happen is you'll start noticing patterns that you didn't notice before. You'll start noticing solutions and answers to questions that you've had, but the answer will represent itself like on the leaf of a plant, okay? You'll see a pattern in something and it'll answer something you've had on your mind for like years or months or weeks. So problem solving is so fascinating because all you have to do is just be aware of your surroundings and the answers are all there. All the answers you're looking for are there. You'll also start noticing patterns in nature and how these patterns replicate themselves at every scale. So if you ever look at neurons in a brain, or if you look at mycelium networks, or if you look at plant roots, if you look at how the rivers come together, if you look at how all the dark matter in the universe looks, you look at social networks, these all contain the same pattern, the same branching architecture. And so you start noticing that branching architecture and everything, but what you also start noticing is where in your life that branching architecture is missing, okay? So in the areas of your life that branching architecture is missing, your life is broken because you're off of the grid, right? So you're not following the connecting branching principles that's woven into all of nature. So those are the areas that you can immediately start fixing in your life. So one of them might be, am I competitive with my colleagues, or am I cooperative with my colleagues, right? What am I doing to elevate everyone else in my community? Because that's what mycelium does. It elevates everyone in the community, not just one person. So then you start realizing, okay, where in my relationships am I like this, right? Where in my finances am I like this? So you start looking at your life from a different perspective. And
you're unblocking flow.
What's that?
You're unblocking flows.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right? You're transforming. Because remember, what is a mushroom? A mushroom is something that has itself gone through a transformation.
Right.
Right? So because of that, you know, it didn't decay. It's not a decay product, right? It's taking decay and turning it into new life. It's turning it into healing software for your body. And so what's really fascinating about psilocybin is now they're studying it for things like depression and anxiety and PTSD and, you know, people who've gone through intense trauma. Because when you start looking at the world with this branching architecture framework, you start realizing that it's everywhere. It's in your body, it's in your hands, it's in your fingerprints, right? It's in your blood, it's in your organs, it's in every single part of your body. And you start realizing that there's a oneness, right? There's something now that you've identified that unifies you with everything in your surrounding. So you start realizing that, okay, there's an overarching intelligence built into everything. And chances are, if it's using the same equation set, it was probably created by the same energetic force, right? Whether we call that God or the universe or, you know, whatever people call it for themselves. But you start to realize there's an intelligence to this. Because there's a pattern to all of this. None of it is random. And so it just becomes you just live a much more beautiful life living in this kind of flow state. And for a lot of people, it can be quite transformational. Now, a hero's dose is 5 grams. So that would be about 17 of those capsules that would make up a microdose. And I haven't done that quite yet. The most I've gotten up to is 3 grams. And it was an amazing time. You know, so I got to hang out with a friend. We've got a little ravine in my backyard. And we just sat there for about an hour. And we could see like in 4D. So like every leaf became much more beautiful. You know, the stones in the riverbed became much more beautiful, and you were just present, and you could just stand there and watch the river flowing for half an hour, and all the questions that you have in your head are being answered at the same time. So it's like a pretty cool, profound experience. But yeah, so that's been my kind of experience with psilocybin. What's interesting about psilocybin is you can actually buy spores online. So the spores are not illegal. I mean, don't try to sell it in the streets, right? But the spores themselves are not illegal. So you can go online and purchase spores legally and then grow them on wood chips in your own home.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's very fascinating. And I wanted to hit on this topic as we close out is coffee, because this is actually the conversation you and I had probably about a month or so ago. Because I'm a bit of a coffee addict. I fully admit that. And I'm getting ready to do the 30-day coffee challenge. So do me a favor, please give us a little bit of info here as we finish off on the coffee and the mushroom coffee.
Yeah, so the company that I was introduced to by one of my mentors, Dr. Bob Rakowski, is called Organo Gold. And what Organo has done is they've taken they have a pristine forest, so they have a relationship with the Chinese government, and in these specific forests in China, they grow reishi mushrooms in the wild. So that's one thing that makes them unique. What they've done is they've got a patented process that takes reishi, which is actually quite bitter, and neutralizes its taste profile so that it's pretty much untastable. So when you add it to coffee, you really can't taste it. Or when you add it to a smoothie, you can't taste it, or to an energy drink or to a detox drink, you can't taste it. And so it makes it much more palatable, because if you were to eat reishi, it would be very bitter. So it's not something that you would normally get in your diet. So they have two different types of coffee and 2 different types of mushroom compounds that are added to it. The black coffee is regular coffee. It comes in a single serving pouch. And so it's easy to share and easy to travel with. I know you travel a lot like I do, so now you can take your coffee with you everywhere you go. And the nice thing about that too is that you have a very specific controlled dose of reishi, the Ganoderma. So that reishi is gonna be the fruiting body part of the mushroom, and it's gonna be black coffee. The other packet is a king coffee. That's the one I drink, and that one is reishi spores and organic coffee. Okay, so that one actually has the spores. The spores are about 75 times more potent, pound for pound, than the mycelium. And what's really interesting about the spores is normally they would go right through you, as I mentioned earlier, but these spores they've figured out a way to crack the double cell wall of the spore so that you can get the nutrition out of the spore. Otherwise, it would travel right through you. Most other companies, when they look at the spore crack rate, the shell crack rate, it's about 15%. With organo, it's over 90%. So you're getting much more of what you're paying for when you're consuming it through this particular product line. So we've been incorporating it with our patients. I was really a little reluctant at first because we used to carry different types of coffee in the office. But when we started carrying this and offering it to patients, it was amazing, the changes that they would experience. Like some people, their brain fog would go away after the first cup. Some people, their joint pain would disappear. Some people, their heartburn that they used to get with coffee would go away. Some people would enjoy coffee, but they would get jittery. Their jitters are completely gone. It improves your sleep because it's reishi is GABAergic. So, people started reporting tremendous changes in their health. And, last month, our team actually sold more coffee, or this month of November, we sold more coffee than the average Starbucks would. So it's really like taken off like the mycelium, right? And so it's amazing. So we've created this amazing network, just like the mycelium would create this leveraged our network. And now everyone that we know, or anyone who's willing to listen, is drinking healthier coffee. And if you're a practitioner, it's a healthier coffee for your patients. Your patients are drinking coffee, right? And if you do a survey and you ask your patients, hey, either you stop drinking coffee or you drink something that's going to be healthy for you, most people are going to choose a healthy coffee. And then once they try it and experience it, they're going to feel tremendously better. And they're going to feel an impact. But even if they don't, now you're dosing them with the most researched medicinal mushroom on the entire planet, and they're getting it consistently, and you're incorporating it into something that they're already doing. So you're taking something that's habitual and you're upgrading it so it's actually medicinal for them.
Absolutely. And I love that model. I think it's so, I mean, even in my world, like I look at it and go, I had some profound realizations the other day, which was that I'm over 40 now, and the body, not that I feel my age per se, but the body does different things. And I'm like, okay, there's some things I have to change in my world. Like I used to be a coffee junkie, and I'm actually starting to twist that a little bit. And that's why I was speaking to you about the mushrooms, because, okay, I have to change this up a little bit because I do travel like you all the time, constantly running up late sometimes. And I need to take maybe what turned into a vice or an addiction, and I need to turn that into the healthiest possible thing I can do while still kind of getting, that flavor or the idea of, sipping a coffee, whatever it might be. And I think that's such a great way to do it. Because again, patients are doing things. Practitioners think that they listen to them on everything, but this is a way to get around that problem and make them healthier overall. And it's a win-win for everybody. So well done on that. I really appreciate that. And where can everyone find you, both for the Living Proof Institute, but also this coffee, where they can connect with you on this information?
So here's what I'll do, is I'll make the link available to you and we'll post it in the comment section. So if you're watching this live or if you're watching the replay, then you can check it out. We have a 30-day challenge. So Dr. Bob and I did a webinar where we went a little bit deeper into the reishi side of things. And then we have a 30-day challenge. So people can go online, they can pick up a cup or 30 cups of coffee, if you will, 30 little sachets or 25 sachets, depending on which coffee you buy. I recommend the King, that's the organic one. But you can try both. You can try the black or the King and try it out, see if you like it, take the challenge, replace your next 25 to 30 cups, don't drink anything else, and see how you feel. And if nothing else, learn more through the webinar. Dr. Bob has been paid millions of dollars to travel over the world and teach people about nutrition. And to have someone of his caliber in our back pocket doing our educational training is quite profound. So you can watch some of the training sessions that he's done. If you're interested in learning more, if you want to incorporate this into your practice, then certainly either reach out to myself or Jason, and we'll be happy to help you out. But yeah, it's been game changing. It's been life changing for people in our practice and even our team. So highly encourage you to look into that. The other thing that you can do is you can learn more about what we do as a practice at becomeproof.com. And so we can share that link as well if anyone's interested.
Awesome. Thank you so much, as always, Sachin, for bringing value, knowledge, and just sharing your gift with everybody. I always appreciate it.
My pleasure, my friend. And, say hi to your family for me. Have an amazing rest of your day. And thanks everyone who tuned in.
I will do that. You do the same. Dr. Sachin Patel, Living Proof Institute, but also teaching us the value, new knowledge on medicinal mushrooms and some of the misunderstandings people have out there and how it really works and how we can actually not only heal the body, but program our body correctly the way it was intended and build up our immune system. So thank you for being in today on Revolution Health, everyone. Have a great Friday afternoon. Take good care of yourselves. Be well, and let's shift the healthcare paradigm. Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.